Hey everybody, I'm Amanda with DevExpress and welcome to 19.1 Launch Week and our third webinar of the week, What's New in WPF, presented by DevExpress CTO Julian Bucknall and DevExpress Technical Evangelist Paul Usher. In this session, they'll explore our latest WPF components and features set to ship as part of version 19.1. This session is being recorded and it will be made available on our DevExpress YouTube channel later today, and we will send the link to the recording in a follow-up email. We will also do a live Q&A at the end of this presentation. Just type your questions in the GoToWebinar control panel at any time throughout the broadcast. All right, thank you so much for joining us. I will now hand things over to Julian and Paul.
Thank you, Amanda, and welcome everybody. This is Julian, and I do believe we have on the line Mr. Usher from Brisbane. Hello, Mr. Usher.
Good morning, Julian. It is morning still.
It's morning for me. Oh, it's morning for you too, but a little earlier. And it's Thursday for you, isn't it, or something? Anyway.
Always in the future.
Basically, what we're doing is Paul and I, in the past, have done the Windows development What's New. So either I do WinForms or he'd do WinForms, and then we'd switch over halfway through the webinar to do the other platform. Well, this year, this release, we had to basically split the platforms altogether into different webinars. Paul presented the What's New in 19.1 for WinForms a couple of days ago, and here we are today, What's New in version 19.1 for WPF. I'll be doing most of the driving, and Paul will be, how can I put it?
Interjecting.
Interjecting, yes. When I waffle on, Paul will jump in and give better details than I'm ever going to be able to do. So the first question people are going to ask, especially as here we are in the middle of the week, when is it available? Paul, is it available now?
No. I keep pressing refresh on the browser, Julian.
So Paul is my refresh button, as it were. It hasn't been released. We were hoping it was going to be released today, but maybe not. It's really close. Let's put it like that. It's really, really close. So first thing first is WPF. There's a lot of new stuff in version 19.1, and essentially these days I would have to say it's mostly all about new features, new enhancements, better user experience for your users, because adding a new control is going to take a rather long time. Unless it's very simple. You'll see a couple of simple new ones as we go through today, but generally these days I would have to say controls take a long time to design and write and build. People expect a lot from our controls, so we have to provide a lot in the first beta and stuff like that. But here we are, and in this particular What's New webinar, I'm going to be talking mostly about the UI side of things, how things have changed for your users, what new features and enhancements they have. After all, we're inspired by what Microsoft are doing, what other companies are doing in the space, and obviously your users are using those applications all the time. They turn to an application that you or your company have written, and they expect that same kind of functionality. So I'm going to be mostly talking about UI side of things. I'm sure Paul will jump in with some coding related features now and then. So the very first thing, you see, obviously the new features include a lot for our standard controls, things like the data grid and the scheduler and so on and so forth. We're not going to be talking about charting. I know it's second on the list there. Paul and I have another webinar tomorrow where we're going to be talking about
Charting, dashboarding, reporting, and all the cool stuff that the BI wrapper encompasses.
So lots of analytics tomorrow. So today, yeah, controls. Let's see what's new in these controls. So without any further ado, I'm going to basically jump into the demo center, which you'll get when you install version 19.1. I'm actually using a slightly later version that's available than, later version that's available on our website at the moment. So I'm using 19.1.3 with some little bug fixes here, there, and everywhere. I think the release is going to be...
Otherwise known as a dangerous nightly build.
Well, yeah, okay. I installed it yesterday, so it could be interesting. So without further ado, we'll jump straight into the data grid. Here, there's a few enhancements with the data grid. First one is the search panel. Now this is a hoot. Here we are on a nice demo of the data grid. And I was going, how do I show the search panel? And Paul jumps in with, well, you're going to do a find, so Control F. Actually, make sure I'm actually here. Control F, Control F, Control F. There we go. Or, as he pointed out, you could just do a right click and then show, well, it's hide search panel, or maybe show search panel. The search panel itself is part of the group panel. So here's the group panel, and the search panel, if you like, is on the side. And it's standard looking search panel. You just we've made it a little more compact and not taking up so much space. So I'm interested in Camrys or Camaros. There we go. Showing those particular items. Pretty simple in concept, shall we say, in the UI sense of things. Obviously, we're doing a search here across all of the columns, not just, in this case, the model name. So if I start typing in FO, we'll not only see the Fords highlighted, but also, in this case, Forester. So that's, it's integrated now inside the grid, inside the grouping panel. If I could jump down here to where are we? Data shaping filtering. There we go. The search panel can now show a lot more information. So here we are. Here's the grid. We'll ignore the code here for the moment. I'm not going to be talking much about code. And I managed to change items. There we go. So here I am searching for Brazil or France, basically those two words, and I'm seeing, the country highlighted. We're showing all of the rows here, and we're just highlighting those rows that are that match the search terms. I could actually go to a pure just showing the rows that match the search terms. But in this particular highlight mode, I want to show you there are 2,155 records in this grid, and we are showing the total number of matches for these two terms, 387, and the index of the current match. Here we are, we're on the first record which actually matches these terms. If I jump down here, I'm on the 10th record of those 387. And we also have these nice find next buttons, essentially. So you can scroll through just the matching records, even though you're showing all of the records. So that's the new search facility. Filter editor. Let me jump up to that. There we go.
While you're finding that, Julian, one thing to note as well, which is a new feature, if your result set has no records, you now have the option of actually displaying the fact that there are no fields or no matching records or no records available, rather than just seeing a blank list.
That would be much better. You see a blank list, you think, there's a bug in the application or something. Yeah, so absolutely. Let's show the filter editor here. here we go. We have a hierarchy built inside the search, or in this particular case, the operand here. So we have the band hierarchy, if you like, so I can search on country. It's obviously is greater than. Ooh, I don't want that. Let's try equals and enter a value. I don't know, Belgium, because I'm going to go to Belgium soon. And we'll apply that. And we can't see any. Because there aren't any.
No,
So,
it doesn't equal Belgium, does it? It starts
no,
with
it doesn't. Oh, that's true. Yes, it's got to start with Belgium. Oh, right. I am on the starts with BE. How about that? And we'll apply it. And bingo. There we go. So also there's a new API here that allows you to customize the field and operator lists. The operator list is kind of fun here. Let's just show that. Show the filter editor. And what we have here is a filter that not only has equals, not equals, but has a custom one called last year's. So we're basically, this filter now says, show me an order date within the last 4 years, or let's make it 3, 3 years. I'll apply it, it changes, we see the data we want to see, essentially. So you can mess around with not only the operators and the field list, you can mess around with the operands as well. So let's show the filter editor. Ooh, let's throw in a range control. So the quantity is between these two values. This is obviously the entire set of values, and now we can basically apply this weird thing inside the filter editor, if you like. And then we have other facilities. So no longer we're showing the hierarchy here, and I'm not quite sure what I was going to show there, but this is obviously the improved appearance. You've been seeing the colors in the filter editor, so it's basically a user experience thing, if you like. The Excel style drop-down filter has also changed to a certain degree. Oh, by the way, while I'm here and we're talking about Excel style drop-downs, I just want to briefly mention that the pivot grid now has Excel-inspired filters and filter editor and so on and so forth, exactly the same as the data grid. I won't be showing that within the pivot grid, but please note that these features are available within the pivot grid. So Excel style drop-down filter, what do I mean by that? We can drop down this, not that one perhaps, maybe this one. No, that one. Maybe I'm trying to be too clever here. This thing. Essentially, you have two ways of specifying your filter, like in Excel. So if we have is greater than, I don't know, 10, for example. And if we go over here, we can see in the filter values, I could have specified the same thing, but we're showing now that the filter values being selected are all of them that are greater than 10. So this is Excel style filtering, and we can customize. I can't remember where.
Just on that, Julian, if we look at the group filters demo there on the left, one of the things that can now be done is multiple columns inside the group filter. So if you were to look at the ship city,
let me clear that ship city.
And then you'll see that there's multiple columns. So there we've got the country column and the city column as a hierarchical filter inside there.
Let's clear that and go to country. And what I can do then is say, just do Belgium. And then this will show, I've selected all of Belgium at the moment. Okay, there's just 2 cities, Brussels and Charleroi. But I can then select, so the hierarchical view, if you like, of those values. So having talked about that side of things and mentioned that, yes, have a look inside the pivot grid for the same kind of features with the filtering. That's about it for Data Grid at the moment. So lots of changes to the filtering aspects and search aspects for seeing the data you want to see within the grid. I'm going to now jump over to the Data Editor's demo. And a first small new control is the Autosuggest Edit control. What this does is it provides suggestion based on the values you enter as you enter the values. Basically, the editor in the development center is going to raise an event every single character or keystroke, and you're then in charge of populating the list. So the list at the moment is empty for searching for a country. So as I say, well, I'm going to Belgium, so B-E. So every single time I enter a character, it goes off, fires that event, and the code behind that event says, okay, I've got a smaller list here of items, and it's a lot easier to display, populate, because if you have thousands upon thousands of entries in your drop-down list, the user is going to be completely overwhelmed, if you like. Same with searching by products. So we've got nothing in there at the moment. I'm a fan of tea cakes, and that'll do. Tea time chocolate biscuits. Nice. And this one example, same control, but here we go. We have a, if you like, a grid behind this, and so it's going to search within the grid. So if I search for something beginning with T or has a T in it, and it's got to be a T space, okay, and there are no T space 10, but okay, if I search for 10, wrong place, there we go down here, T, and I'm searching for a 10 as well, no, okay, maybe I'll just search for 10, there we go, and it's searching 10 within the quantity here, or within unit price, essentially. So the ability there is to search multiple columns in my final grid here, and so I can search for unit price as well. Let's search for that. 9 point, as you see all the 9 points, 9.5, I know the unit price is 9.5 something, so there we have the 9.5 somethings. So that's the Autosuggest Edit. The normal editor, the text edit, now supports time span values. So let's jump over there. Here we have a time span value, and as you can see, as I'm going left and right, it's going to select the subfields of this mask. So I can enter things like, well, the current time at the moment is what, 11, and then cursor right, 20, 45. Easy. That's a time span mask type, and then we also have the advancing caret time mask, so I can type in, and as I type in 11, it jumps automatically to the next subfield. To 0 jumps to the next subfield. Sometimes that's easier to type in. Sometimes you get a bit annoyed because I just want a 1 in there, and now never mind. So advancing caret, those are the two mask types that are now available within either the text edit or the button edit controls to display time span values. Various enhancements across our data editors. Button edit and descendants now include a show null value on focus only property. So you only need a clear button for a focus editor. Pop-up editors allow you to prevent a pop-up from being closed using the cancel property. Could be something you're looking for. Appearance customization toggle switch now ships with switch border template and switch thumb template. Standalone editors now support date time mask options, date time kind attached property. Yikes! So basically, entering your date in UTC, local time or whatever, and that's what you get out of it. List box edit, combo box edit with groups, vertical virtualization and per item scrolling. And the color edit displays a slider for the alpha channel, or doesn't display it at all. Now I'm just going to jump over to one of Paul's favorite controls, the diagram control.
Second only to the Gantt control, Julian.
Oh, okay, I'll do the Gantt control after this. Oh, have we released yet?
No.
The new feature for the diagram control are what's called collapsible containers. So let me show you a fairly complex diagram here. It's a database schema. It's a fairly simple database schema, but even so, let's grow the, maybe not so much. So here we have a standard looking database schema. The tables are in fact described within containers in diagram speak. So these containers then have links between them, these connectors between them, which basically describe, the foreign key relationships. And the collapsible container thing, you notice here the containers have these up arrows next to them, and I can now collapse them. And when I collapse one of these containers, or in this case tables, the connectors then disappear. So it just makes it easier to then, if you like, zoom in on a particular part of the diagram here and not get confused with all the other stuff happening elsewhere. So it's just a great way of, let me turn off orders, which in which case I don't really need to look at that. Oh, the order details, go to product, and so on and so forth. You can then essentially concentrate on one area of the diagram very easily and not have to worry about what's happening elsewhere within the diagram. You're not confused or diverted. Your attention's not diverted. It's a bit similar to this one, for example, where you have a hierarchy chart and then you can expand and collapse levels of the hierarchy. So it's a bit similar to that, but we're talking about the actual containers themselves. Another one which is kind of fun, no longer in that particular example, but this one, the diagram designer. And in past versions, we've had a export as images, so PNGs and GIFs and JPEGs, but we now have the PDF export. So you can create a diagram, or a user can create a diagram, and then export it to PDF and print it for the next meeting or whatever it happens to be. So export to PDF. And let's go back, and I did promise Paul, so let's jump into the Gantt control.
Yay.
This is one of those controls that you either got to have, or you're like, yeah, it's interesting. Can we move on?
Got to have.
You've got to have. Paul was telling me earlier on he's used Gantt controls as in Microsoft Project, for example, in previous lives, or even the current life. Do you use them in current life?
I still dabble very much in the project management space and custom controls for Gantt. So we saw yesterday at the ASP.NET webinar that we've got a Gantt control that's at CTP for the web. So when it comes to this stuff, lead times, lag times, multi-dependency, resource shaping, I just love it.
It's so essentially what we have here is a project, and this is the planning for the project, and the project's divided up, as you can see, into phases. So we have this kind of tree list here showing phases and tasks within those, and tasks within those tasks, and all that kind of stuff. And we have resources as well. So this is quote, editable, and you can change things within the tree list itself. But what we've done in version 19.1 is to make the actual chart itself, the Gantt chart itself, more accessible. So as you can see here, as I'm moving over the chart, various things are happening to these various tasks. So let me click on this particular task as an example. And yeah, I recognize it's going to take a lot longer. So now I can drag the extent of that particular task over. So let me do that. So I can make it much longer, and obviously it's going to update the start and finish dates within the tree list itself. The other interesting thing to note is, as I did this, the Gantt control basically noticed that this grey area here is a weekend. So nothing's going to happen over the weekend, because none of us work at weekends, do we, Paul? So it's noticed that, and so it recognizes that, yes, the connector line here has to be lengthened over the weekend. So this particular task here, the owner's task, interview owners of similar whatever, will start on the Monday, basically. So there's the ability to move things along and make it later. You know, the business advisor can't start until then, so we have this gap now of nothing happening within this particular phase. But I could drag it back. Let's drag it here again. And if you notice, these small little dots appear. So now I can add a connector. So maybe connect over here as well. And of course now this messes up, so we have this red connector saying, whoa, watch out. You know, the accountant can't start until this particular task is finished, and so on and so forth. So using this drag and drop and resizing and adding extra connectors with drag and drop as well gives you a more visual and interactive way to apply changes to your whole project. And as I said, we are now taking advantage of the fact that, yes, there are, you know, quote, weekends happening in here. And so
it also highlights why you don't let the CTO run your business planning.
Well, that's true too, yes. We'll work weekends. So that's the new features in the Gantt charts, basically a more interactive chart altogether than what was there previously.
And just on that, Julian, there's also, with the automatic task scheduling, the API now allows you to calculate optimal start dates based on dependencies and durations. Mm-hmm. You've got the, you've already shown the automatic recalculation positions there, and it takes into account those non-working hours and holidays when you're calculating task durations. So some key elements for anybody working inside that space.
Yeah, absolutely. And fun stuff. As we're talking very visual stuff, let me jump over to the map control now. Lots of changes to the map control. The one I particularly like, because it's so visual, is the vector shape simplification ability. Let me turn off auto here, because so here we have a full map. It's no, turn it off. Here we have 24,000 points. It's a map of Iceland. Okay, every single inlet. How do I know that? I've probably flown over it on my trips to Europe. Mind you, there was that, was it 5 years ago, 6 years ago, maybe a bit more, when some volcano on Iceland blew up and all of the flights to and from Europe and the US were diverted and cancelled and all that kind of stuff. Anyway, so it's Iceland. The interesting thing here is the ability now to simplify that map. So here we are, we're down to, as it say here, 59 points, and yet it's still pretty much recognizable as Iceland if you know Iceland. So why do this? Well, obviously, in a sense, because there are fewer points, it's faster to render on the screen. So the user may not be interested in every single, as I say, inlet with Iceland, but this is still recognizably Iceland. So it helps the user visualize shapes faster, it renders faster, and you're reducing CPU and memory consumption in actually displaying these kinds of simplified maps. So the shape simplification algorithm is there for you to use. And one of the other fun items here is non-visual in a sense, is the map control now ships with the following export features. We have item attributes can be exported to KML, and map items can be exported to WKT, to which I, in a very British way, said, what are those? WTF?
So sidebar, Julian, KML, keyhole markup language, is the XML notation that is used for expressing and annotating visualization within 2D or 3D map and browsers. Now, interestingly, KML was developed for use with Google Earth, which was originally named Keyhole Earth Viewer.
Really? Keyhole Earth Viewer? Okay.
Yes.
Thank God they changed it.
The other one is pretty tough. I don't think you'd ever guess what WKT stands for.
I have absolutely no idea. WKT, no, never seen it before.
Text.
Well-known text. Seriously?
And it
well-known text. Okay.
Again, a markup language representing a vector geometry on a map. Now there is a sibling version known as WKB. Points for guessing.
B stands for, I don't know.
Binary. So there's well-known binary.
Well, the only well-known binary is 0 and 1, isn't it, or something?
Yes.
Maybe I'm just being too simple.
You are being too simple right now.
Talking geometries, we've added a new API for calculating various measurements to do with the geometry of your maps. And based on essentially geo-coordinates, we can calculate areas for you. So if a set of points, we can calculate the area between all those points. The distance between 2 points, we can calculate that. Center of 2 points. The perimeter of an area that's surrounded by points, we can do that, and various angles. So it's been enhanced, ready for your map displays within your application, and including WKT and KML. Okay, and the next on the list is, unfortunately I can't show you on this particular screen, our PDF viewer now has full touch support. So if you're rendering on, say, the Surface or on my main laptop here, we now support all standard touch gestures, so pinching and rotating and holding, as well as swiping to scroll quickly. And the scrolling also has an inertia aspect to it, so when you lift your finger off the screen, the scrolling will continue for a very short time and slow down and stop. So that's inertia scrolling. So if you swipe very quickly, you'll see a lot more movement. If you swipe slowly, it'll slow down and stop pretty much immediately. And the PDF viewer also supports CID fonts for CMAPs for CJK characters. And this is my acronym for Paul. CJK stands for Chinese, Japanese, Korean. So that's those characters.
WKT.
So PDF Viewer now displays those fonts when direct rendering is enabled and you're displaying a PDF that contain them. Unfortunately, I have no such font. Next, let's jump over to the ribbon control. A couple of reasons for this as we get into the demo here. We're now, by default, are showing the Office 2019 style. So a much neater, if you like, ribbon. I mean, heck, the ribbon's only been available, what, 10 years or something? So already we're seeing different styles to do with the ribbon. A couple of things I want to show here as well as the ribbon. We now have the, quote, simplified ribbon. Now, Paul, we used to call this a toolbar, didn't we?
It is a toolbar. It's a tabbed toolbar, effectively, now.
Yes, exactly. So that's the new name for the toolbar, is a simplified ribbon. Only joking. So here's the standard ribbon with all of the various options and commands and what have yous, and by collapsing it or simplifying it, we get this kind of toolbar look and feel to it. We still have the same tabbed format for the what's going to be displayed within the ribbon, but it does give you a better look and feel, maybe if you're in that kind of application where you're trying to maximize the screen real estate for what's going to appear underneath the ribbon. While I'm here and talking about maximizing screen real estate, notice the title bar here of this application. It's an application. Here's the close and maximize, minimize buttons we normally see in a title bar, but we're also seeing all of these new things here. So let me select something, and so we have, you know, cut and copy and paste and ability to show extra stuff. We're all within the title bar. So this is another new feature for WPF here, is the ability to show controls and commands and stuff inside the title bar. So you're, again, maximizing your real estate for your application. Great new feature. Also, while we're here, let's talk a quick bit about the new themes. We have a full set of Office 2019 themes. Yep, and 2016 and 2017. But also, we have separate palettes for each of these. So let me select white, say. I hit redraw, so this is the Office 2019 white, and we have all of these preset palettes as well. So I kind of like spruce leaves, so we'll select that as well. So that's Office white with the spruce leaves, and notice how my navigation here on the side is now had this palette applied to it. And obviously with these palettes, you can define your own. So if you have a company-wide color palette, for logos and for all that kind of stuff, then you can set the palette or create your own palette within the theme editor and use that with the actual theme. So Office 2019 white. Oh yeah, a new control. Let's quickly show this one. It's the breadcrumb control. Like when I'm eating toast at my desk, I have breadcrumbs. So let me go to users. We're just showing my laptop here. This is so as I go down into this folder tree, I'm getting this breadcrumb happening across this particular control here. So we have various features for this: select and edit controls, binding options, configurable UI. The kind of interesting thing here is I can, just like in the standard file explorer on your machine, I can select other things. Just to show that I used to have DevExpress demos 18.2 here, but I upgraded, as you will be able to pretty soon.
Not yet. Okay.
So standard breadcrumb control, so you can now copy the entire folder URL. Folder URL. Oh God, I'm so web. But obviously, if you have some kind of hierarchical feel to your data, you can certainly use the breadcrumb control as your user navigates through your hierarchy of data to remind them where they are and all that kind of stuff. It doesn't have to just be a file explorer type thing. Rich text editor, next on the list. Can't show you very much here. There's lots of enhancements for right to left languages, especially Arabic. We have paragraph alignment for Arabic languages, line numbering, and some new UI elements for right to left, so alignment, indents, bulleted, numbered lists, and so on. Obviously very important if you're in that sphere. We're also added paragraph justification for East Asian languages like Thai. We now support distributed and Thai distributed paragraph alignment. I have unfortunately no idea what that means, but if your particular application is geared towards that area of the world, then we have it.
So effectively, Julian, it's all about letters that have vowel elements on them as well. So we increase the space around certain letters in those alphabets to make it easier to read or better support across that Asian space.
I noticed, in your presentation for WinForms, you actually had installed that particular, what is it?
Language pack for Windows.
Language pack, that's it, for Windows, which I should have done. Well. So go and look at the WinForms version. It's up on YouTube, and you'll see what I mean. We also now support in the rich text editor file encryption. So if you've encrypted your docx or doc file within Word, we can now open it. We'll show you a dialog to open a encrypted file. And if you're opening HTML files within the rich text edit, we now support horizontal rules or HR tags within that HTML. Next, I'm going to be jumping over to the, I would say scheduler, but in the US it's known as the scheduler. So the scheduler control, what we have here is the Office 2019 style, as we see here. While I'm on this particular demo, we also have the date navigation panel. So here's the panel, and I can navigate through the dates by clicking on the arrows to go left and right. Let me just jump over to this particular example. Here we have a set of resources, in other words, people, and we're showing basically this resource view, if you like, a day view, and we're grouping by resource. So each resource now has a color associated with it. So Lincoln here is in blue, Victor is in yellow, and so on. And the resource colors are used to paint the resource headers, which we have here, but also appointments that don't have some kind of assigned label which define a color. So here we have an appointment, and the label is hospital. The hospital label here has associated with it a transparent color. So when we notice that in the scheduler code, we say, okay, we're going to display it in the resource color, in other words, Victor's color here. And if I just close that and show you the difference, this one here has, this particular label has a color associated with it. So that's what appears inside the scheduler. You can specify a palette for labels, as you saw, and resources. You can do that by theme or with all themes, and so on and so forth. What else we got? Clipboard. So hey, let's copy that, Control C, and paste it there. So copy, paste. The interesting thing is, I didn't know this until just now, or when I was preparing this particular example, but here's the text that goes with that particular appointment. It's just, as I just said, it's just text basically. So anything that would understand this particular format, such as Outlook or something like that, you can paste this clipboard entry into. So I'm just showing you here what it looks like in Notepad, but certainly you can paste it elsewhere too. It's just text. I won't say that. Obviously, you've still got the ability to drag and drop. That's still available. But yeah, we have clipboard support now. We can copy appointments to clipboard and paste within the schedule. And you can customize or restrict certain copy-paste operations if you have to. On the print side of things, we have a new or enhanced print preview window. So let it load up. And what we're going to show here is, here's the print preview window. Okay, it looks fairly normal at the moment. I can slip over to the options side of things here, and I can select, say, a weekly style instead of the daily style. Maybe I don't want to show this calendar, so I can now turn that off. Maybe turn off the interval. It should be fairly obvious from the dates on the printout and so on. So there's this ability, if you like, to customize the template to a certain extent. Let's show a couple of days per page. We're showing the calendar. Let's turn that off again. So we're back on the daily, but we're showing 2 days at this particular point in time. Today and tomorrow, if it was that kind of print. So you can specify the printing interval, number of resources per page, the optional calendar displays, and all that. So new print enhancements for the scheduler. As I'm on the S's, let's jump to the spreadsheet. Oops, can't spell spread. This first one on the spreadsheet, I absolutely love. I use it in Excel, and it's just the best way to write a formula. So here we are. Here's a nice little spreadsheet here. Okay, I want to find the average price. So I start typing, and lo and behold, I see the pop-up here showing formulas that begin with AV, and I want the average. I press tab, and then in the old days I'd be typing in the cell addresses, but now I can just press up, shift up, press enter. Bingo. Average price 38.075. This is great. Just magic. Love it. Quantity. Let's do the average quantity. Average. Tab. Up. And press enter. Boom. Average quantity. So the average price times the average quantity should equal the total. But simplified formula creation there, absolutely brilliant. If your user is expert in, spreadsheets and all the rest of it, they'll be very happy. Next up for the scheduler, we've done a great deal with regard to performance, especially calculation performance. Did I say something else?
You said scheduler.
Did I? Damn it, Janet. The spreadsheet. We've improved the performance, especially with regard to calculations. Our formula calculation engine is now nearly 5 times faster than it was in those old version 18s. So be aware of that and enjoy when you get version 19.1. The other thing with regard to calculations is we now support multi-threaded calculations. So you can basically specify the number of calculation threads for your spreadsheet control, and it will use those in calculating whatever it needs to calculate within the spreadsheet as your user is editing values and so on and so forth. It would be great for I used to work in a bank on a trading floor, writing code for them, and when you're calculating yield curves or option prices and all those kind of weird and wonderful things which have these bizarre formulas behind them. Excellent for that kind of thing. But if you've got a set of calculations spread across numerous worksheets and sheets within a particular worksheet, you'll notice the difference. We've also added a few Excel 2016 functions, things like concat and text join and ifs, if-s, switch, max, if-fs, and min, if-s. What's next on the list? I think you're going to jump in here, weren't you? Somewhere? I can't remember. You're going to say, Julian, you forgot the property grid.
You were going to remember the property grid, but you must mention the property grid.
Okay, the property grid. I mean, I read this and I went, what? The property grid has this new feature. Okay, it's a great feature. It now can display and edit dynamic properties from an Expando object. Now I read this and I went, what the heck is an Expando object? So now I'm going to ask all my attendees here to put up their hands if they've heard and used the Expando object. And from my particular position, I can just see one hand, and that's Paul. So Paul, what is the Expando object?
Well, when I first heard the term, I actually thought that Seth Juarez had jumped in and done his Supermano type thing again. But an Expando object, simplest way to put it, Julian, is JavaScript for .NET.
Oh,
I know I'm going to get a ton of hate mail just for that, but it's an object whose members can be dynamically added or removed at runtime. So, dynamic Julian is new Expando object. I can then do julian.test equals hello, and interrogating that is going to return the object type as a string. I've then got that property available to it. I can interact. I can add delegates and events on the fly to my Expando object. So it is pretty cool stuff. It's been in the framework since version 4.
Oh, okay. Wow.
Just the fact that the property grid can display that. And unfortunately, again, I'm going to throw it out there, with the likes of Blazor coming on the scene, JavaScript is dead.
No, definitely not. So basically, it's like your JavaScript object. If you want a particular property, just add it. Give it its name, give it its value, end of story. But our property grid now for WPF will support all of those dynamic properties from your Expando object instance. I used to call them hash tables, but there we go. I'm old-fashioned.
You are.
Tree list, quick demo here on the tree list. We now have the multi-column tree view. We now have the ability to show a new item row. So here we are. The new item row is down here. We can show it at the top. There it is at the top, or at the bottom, or not show it at all. And so basically, it's a way of webinar. I can't type today. Let's give it to Kevin. Boom, 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 and we've added it. So now it's another item in this tree list. I can basically grab it and move it somewhere else, maybe underneath there. Okay. Or maybe I'll drag it and put it here. So it's just an item in the tree view now, or the tree list, and I can move it around. But it's just a way for basically giving your users the opportunity to add new items to your tree view. And just almost done. The entire branch filter mode for the tree view allows you to display both the parents and children of a node that meet the filter criteria. So if I show the filter editor here, and I'm going to add an item saying the assignment equals Kevin. So I press OK, and so all I'm going to see now are things for Kevin Carter. But if there was something underneath here, there's nothing underneath it. There is something underneath here, but With this particular mode turned off, all I see are exact matches. With the entire branch filter mode turned on, I'd actually see everything underneath this particular item as well as the item itself. So that's the treatise, and that's roughly about it.
So two things I'd like you to do, Julian.
Oh, yes.
Two promises I've made already. Can you switch even just that demo, switch the theme to the dark theme, please, just because somebody wants to see the dark theme?
The black or the dark grey?
I'll do the black, just for fun.
Do the black, okay. So, okay, and... Oops, sorry. I bring it back. Ooh, holy.
There we go, thank you. And the other thing, so that's the dark theme. The other thing I'd like you to do is actually go to the demo center for WPF and bring up the properties grid just very quickly while I start looking through some of these questions.
Oh, the property grid. Okay, sure. Let me go there. Prop. A T grid.
So for those that aren't familiar with the properties grid, it's
in the dark theme.
With the dark theme. Just close that one down for me. Just exit out of that one. That'll do. That's fine.
Okay. Oh, I see. Okay.
You could use the property grid with the data editor control just to show what the property grid's all about, because I think it's a very valuable component that is sometimes not used or not known about. So
the weird thing is we use the property grid all the time in Visual Studio. It's that thing in the bottom right hand corner by default.
And it's so nice just to be able to assign an object and the property grid will display everything. So just bring one of them back up quickly. We'll start going through some of the questions. When is 19.1 going to be released? Any day now, any minute. I keep pressing refresh, hoping it's not here yet.
Really, it is any day now. I mean, the last I heard, the teams were, doing their final tests for the not only their particular part of the product, but also the build. So it should be any day now. Maybe later on today, maybe tomorrow.
You guys, I have received news that it is tomorrow.
It is tomorrow. Oh, okay. There we go.
I'll stop worrying at my mouse.
Breaking news.
Breaking news. It is tomorrow. Thank you, Amanda.
Sure. Just click on the property attributes. The data editors option there, Julian.
Data editors. There we go.
I think it's one of the nicer demos showing the property grid with all the different elements there. So some other questions that came through when using the Autosuggest edit, is it possible to limit values? What we showed today is that we're firing an event which is a custom event, so you get to control everything that's happening.
Yep.
The second question relating to Autosuggest was regarding, can we delay when the event is fired? And yes, you can. There is an option for doing that.
Oh, okay.
Charting controls tomorrow, we'll be covering that with all the reporting and business intelligence stuff, dashboarding. Mm-hmm. Can we set a default theme, or can we set a theme palette by code? Yes. We do have some online examples of exactly how to do that. What else have we got in here? Markdown support for rich edit control. We don't actually support Markdown out of the box, but keep asking. The teams obviously...
Well, the thing about that is Markdown is just text. There's no attributes to that text at all. It's just text. The interesting thing about Markdown is the way you can convert it to HTML. But with regard to the rich text edit, I mean, not really sure. Anyway.
Be interesting to switch between a Markdown view and a straight text view.
Mm-hmm. True.
What else have we got in here? No, are there any new tile providers supported in the map control? And the answer there is no. That's Bing and OpenStreet at this stage. So release is tomorrow, thanks to Amanda, which means it's today for me, isn't it? Does that mean?
Yeah, it's already tomorrow for you. You're in the future.
For those that missed out on the intro, we do have some more amazing presentations this week for what's new in version 19.1. So if you haven't already registered, jump in there and get yourself registered. Even if you can't attend, it means you'll get a link directly to the recorded presentation afterwards. And Julian, amazing job. Let's hand things back to Amanda now.
Yeah, thank you very much. And Amanda, it's all yours.
Yes, gentlemen. Thank you, Julian and Paul. All right, everybody. Like I mentioned before, and like Paul just mentioned, today's webinar will be made available later on our DevExpress YouTube channel. I just posted the link to our YouTube channel in the chat box. Also, while you're there, you can subscribe and ring that notification bell so that you know when we release new content. You will also get a follow-up email with a link to this webinar recording and all of our launch webinar recordings. And we do have a couple left coming up. Tomorrow, Julian and Paul will be back doing dashboards, reporting, and analytics. And Friday, we have 2 webinars, DevExtreme, and later in the day, Code Rush. You can register for them at devexpress.com/webinars. And that is it for this one. Thank you so much to Paul and Julian. Thank you all for joining us. And of course, thank you for choosing DevExpress. Bye-bye.